Hi, everybody. It is Tuesday and we're cooking in the kitchen. I am super excited today to share with you a recipe that I have been using and it helps me clean out the kitchen. So, when you feel like you've got a lot of things in the refrigerator that are getting a little bit past their prime and it's time to use them up, this is a great way to do it. This is a chicken tagine. If you're not familiar with what a tagine is, I will show you. It is a Moroccan dish used for cooking. It's made out of clay and it's made especially for slow cooking. So the tower here is made so that all the steam rises and then condenses and drips back down into the food. So you get a nice, really juicy finished dish. So today I'm going to be cooking in my Dutch oven here. Just for convenience, I might transfer everything over into my tagine to let it cook slowly. But getting back to that clean out the refrigerator thing, this is a great way. You know, we all buy these vegetables and things because we know that they're good for us and we want to eat them, but sometimes we just don't get to all of them at the right time. So I went through my refrigerator to see what was hiding in there. And from this, I'm going to be making a wonderful dish, whereas otherwise they would have been thrown out, right? So here I'm making a dish that will help me age less quickly and help me sustain my energy, well-being, and vitality just by using up all of these good for you foods and not throwing them out. So what did I find? Well, I had an onion that was going a little bit, so I cut that one up right away, so I had that ready. I had a half of a red pepper. I'm going to put that in as well. I have a half of a peeled sweet potato. That one's going in too. I figured I'd throw in some carrots. I have a zucchini that's looking a little iffy, so we're going to throw that one in too, along with a little bit of garlic. And I always have a can of tomatoes in my pantry for doing dishes such as these. The other thing too, which inspired me to use the dish, is I had some leftover figs. Figs last forever in your refrigerator, but sometimes it's just time to use them up, right? They're very good for you. They're high in fiber. They're naturally sweet. So something very healthy, anti-inflammatory to add into this dish. And I had a few leftover pieces of kale. We're going to be using that too. So let me just move these out of the way because what I would like to do first is prep the chicken. So I took my chicken out of the package. I have some boneless, skinless chicken thighs here. I clean them up. Sometimes what I like to do is I will look and see if there's a lot of fat that is on the meat. I will just take some kitchen shears or a knife and cut off the excess fat. We don't need that for this dish. And I'm just going to cut these down into more or less bite-sized pieces. So I'm cutting through, and then I'll probably just cut through again. Because it's the chicken thighs, they are not in cubes, but more or less, 1 to 2 inch cubes. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to add some olive oil to my heating pot. About 1 to 2 tablespoons. So that's getting nice and hot for when I add in the chicken. You always want to heat up that olive oil before you add in what you're cooking, and that keeps the food from sticking to your pot. All right, good. So we've got some good bite-sized pieces here. Let me just quickly add in my chicken. It's a little noisy, isn't it? All right. So the idea here is we're just browning the chicken. I'm going to let that sit. I turned down my heat a little bit. I just want that to brown, to sear in some of the juices. We'll give this a couple of minutes. And while this is cooking, normally I'd be chopping my onions, but my onion I already chopped in advance. I chopped my red pepper. So let's instead cut up the sweet potato. I'm cutting this into about 1/2 inch cubes. So I sliced it down one way. And then what I like to do is take the rounds, put them on, and chop through so that I have nice, even cubes. I'm keeping these fairly large because I don't want them to fall apart, and this is going to be cooking for a long, slow time. So I don't want to make them too small. The larger they are, the longer they'll take to cook. We'll give that another minute. While that's going, let me chop my carrots. Now, I have some organic carrots here. If I'm using conventional carrots, I will usually peel them. But since these are organic, I just have a nice little scrubber here that I use to clean them off, which I did ahead of time, so that I don't need to peel them. I like to try and keep as much of the outer surface of that vegetable intact, because that's where a lot of the anti-inflammatory power and goodness of our fruits and vegetables lie in those outer layers. And a lot of the antioxidants that we know are found in the peel. Antioxidants are what give these foods their very special color. So for instance, a carrot, which is orange, has different antioxidants than, say, the red pepper. And these antioxidants are what keep us and keep our cells healthy. And when our cells are healthy, it helps and maintains and keeps our organs healthy. And that's what helps keep us young. If you have a lot of inflammation, that can lead to disease. So we want to keep our bodies as healthy as possible by eating a variety of lots of different colors in our foods. All right, so I put in 4 carrots, and I'll have that half a sweet potato. Both of those are very sweet, along with the red pepper, which is also very sweet. So we're going to be getting in some natural sweetness into our dish here. Chicken now is pretty much seared. While I'm waiting, I'm going to crush 2 garlic cloves. Very easy to do. You can use a garlic press, or you can do like I do sometimes. Take the side of your knife and just smash it. By doing that, the paper that's sometimes hard to peel comes right off. And I'm just going to leave these garlic cloves here just like that for a moment. Set them aside while I take out my chicken. I'll just show you real quick what I have here. It's not really browned, but the meat is seared, which will seal in some of their juices. And I'm just going to transfer these now to a separate plate. And add in the vegetables that I just chopped up. So there, I have my chicken. I'm just going to set that aside for now. First thing I want to add in are my onions. Now, I also had a shallot that was in there, so I thought I'd throw that in as well. Now, there was enough oil still down at the bottom of my pan here, so I didn't bother to add in more. Just going to give this a stir. And I'm going to add in my carrots right away. And let those start cooking. Isn't it nice when everything's all chopped up ahead of time? That's where prepping comes in. So important. All right. Let me get one ingredient. I'm going to add in some chicken stock in a little bit, but because I can see a little bit of browning at the bottom of my pan here, I'm going to add in a little bit of liquid, and that will help loosen up so that it doesn't burn those brown pieces that are at the bottom. All right. Let me add in now my red pepper, my red bell pepper, and I'm going to add in my sweet potato too. You'll notice that I've waited till the end to add in my garlic, and that is because I don't want my garlic to burn, because then it can get bitter, lose its flavor. I'm going to give it a loose chop here. It doesn't have to be well diced up. I'm going to add that in now and let that cook. Normally, I give it maybe about 5 minutes for everything to cook up and start to soften. I just want things to start, I want the onions to start to caramelize. When that happens, it brings out the sugar, the sweetness in the onions. And while those are cooking, now is a good time for me to be adding in my spices. So I have some turmeric here, some paprika, some cinnamon, and some fresh ginger. Again, the ginger was in my refrigerator and I wanted to use it up. So here we are. Great opportunity. So I'm going to add in about 1/4 teaspoon of my turmeric. You can add in a little bit more if you'd like. Turmeric, I find, doesn't have a very strong flavor. It's very distinctive, but it's not strong. So you can add in a little bit more if you like. And again, it's an antioxidant. It helps support the liver. So it's a great anti-aging spice. I'm going to add in some paprika, a 1/2 teaspoonful. Again, with flavor, it's also adding a nice red color to the dish. And I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of my cinnamon. And I always like to say, you know, this is the beauty of when you're cooking. If you don't like cinnamon that much, don't add as much cinnamon, right? And I'm going to give that a stir so those can start toasting and browning along with the vegetables. Oh, that smells so good. And that cinnamon has a very sweet flavor as well. It's going to add like a nice sweetness to the dish and depth of flavor. Now we're ready for that fresh ginger. I'm going to grate up, I have a planer here, and I am going to grate up about 1 inch of my knob. It's a knob of ginger, right? Fresh ginger works. If you don't have fresh ginger, you could probably put in about a half teaspoon of dried. I find when the ginger gets a little bit older, it takes a little bit longer to grate it because it's not quite as plump as it used to be. But we're doing just fine here. It's also a little harder to peel than when it's fresh. When it's fresh, you can just take a teaspoon and scrape it along the sides and the peel will come right off. I had to work a little harder with that spoon on this one, so I did it ahead of time. All right, let's get all that ginger off. Into that was probably about a teaspoon of grated ginger. Give this a turn. I'm going to add in a little bit more of my liquid. I don't get any burning here. And yeah, nice. I'm going to put in a half teaspoon of salt. There we go. And that's it for our seasonings. So now, let me just put my seasonings away here. I'm going to grab that can of tomatoes that I had. Again, I love to have diced tomatoes and tomato paste in my pantry. They come in handy in so many dishes. And I'm going to add in the rest of my broth. Probably about 2 cups of broth total. And all of a sudden, it got a lot quieter in the kitchen. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to stir this up and show you what we have so far, what it looks like. It smells so good. I wish you could smell this. Here we go. All right, now here comes the fun part, those figs. If you haven't cooked with figs, they add such a delicious flavor. They'll kind of fall apart in the dish more or less. But I'm going to put in about 6 figs for this dish. All right, and I'm going to just roughly chop them. They should look like the inside of a fig Newton if that's your only experience with dried figs. And they smell very much like the inside of a fig Newton. They have a little bit of a tough outer covering. Up, our stew is boiling there. Yum. How lovely is that? And I'm just giving these a rough chop, maybe 1/2 inch, some 1/4 inch pieces. I cut each fig into about 9 pieces maybe. Very good. And the reason I like to cut these up is so that the inside is exposed to the sauce. So they really infuse the sauce with their flavor. If you don't have figs, raisins are great for this. You could use chopped apricots as well. Tagines usually have a dried fruit. And tagine, the dish is called tagine as well. But have a dry fruit in them. All right. So we've got that cooking. And now what I'm going to do is add back in the meat that I took out before. And that's pretty much it. What I will do later on is add in a zucchini maybe, and add in some of my chopped kale. I will chop the zucchini in some pretty decent size, so probably about 1/2 inch chunks that are cut in half again for this one. It's kind of a small zucchini, just to give you an idea of the size of what I'm going to be putting in. I don't like them to be really mushy, which is why I will add them later on. If you like them softer and you want them to kind of melt into the dish, then by all means, you could add it in now. But I'm going to wait. And for that reason too, I'm going to wait on my kale. So let me just show you, for a dish like this, I'm not even going to destem my kale. Sometimes I take the stems off, but the stems will cook nicely in this. And I'm just going to cut it into little ribbon pieces, probably, again, about another ½ inch in width. And then I cut back through it. So these are all ready now for me to put in. I would let this simmer on low on your stove for about 25 minutes with a lid on. So, and just let it go. Now, what I might do is I might transfer this into my tagine. If I do that, what I have is my tagine. I don't know if you can see, but I have a ring from my wok that I put on to keep the heat away from the tagine, because you want it to cook low and slow. So low heat for a long time. So I could probably leave my tagine for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and let it cook. And the way it's designed, remember I said, the steam condenses and keeps dripping down on it, keeps it nice and moist. So there you have it. Let me just show you what our finished dish looks like here. I will post a picture of the finished cooked dish, so keep an eye out for it. What I like to do for serving is I will either take sesame seeds or sliced almonds and sprinkle those on top for a little bit of crunch. I hope you get to try this. Again, this is, if you're looking for anti-inflammatory foods. Anti-inflammatory foods are great because, as I like to say, they help us age backwards. And if this concept is intriguing to you, I encourage you to follow along, look at more of the recipes that I have in my website. I am actually developing a community pretty soon that I invite you to join, which is going to be a community membership program, which is Evey Schweig's Aging Backwards community. And we'll be talking about all of these anti-aging foods. We'll be talking about lifestyle issues as well. I'll be inviting guest speakers that are experts in their field to round out this whole concept, not just of eating, but of living an aging backwards lifestyle. So keep posted for that. Keep watching. And if not, I will just see you next Tuesday in the kitchen. And thanks for watching. Jack, I see your comment. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Stay healthy. Bye-bye now.